Hi, Sean Bussey for PortlandBuilt.com. Today we're at the Live Work project where we're going to be talking a little bit about the building envelope. The building envelope is the systems that keep water out of the building. And we're in Portland where it rains a lot. As you can see on a day like today, this is a typical Portland winter day. We have many days like this where it's raining, water's hitting the building on a regular basis, and in Portland, keeping water out of the building is probably the #1 challenge for construction. So we're going to talk about some of the systems and the details that we've used to help mitigate water and also to keep heat inside the building. We'll talk about some of the materials like this pink board, which insulate the building but also keep the elements out. So let's head on over to the building and we'll talk a little bit about these systems. So we're inside the Live Work project. I'm with Rory Reed of RDG Construction. He's working on this project as a general contractor and did a lot of work to come up with this wall assembly. So I'm kind of curious, Rory, if you can explain why the pink foam over the entire building envelope.
A few reasons. The first one, energy efficiency. We all know that more insulation simply means that it's going to cost us less money to heat our homes, keep them warm in the winter.
Right.
Specifically wrapping the entire structure in 1 inch of XPS insulated sheathing, that gives us an added R5 insulation value. If you think about a traditional stick frame construction, we've got dimensional lumber as a skeleton. On the outside of the dimensional lumber, we've got some type of sheathing, perhaps plywood, perhaps OSB. We fill the cavities with fiberglass batt insulation, typically. This works quite well as long as it's tight and cut to fit. The weak point in this kind of assembly are these studs. These create thermal bridges from the interior all the way to the exterior. So this will block heat loss. But these wood members, and we have a lot of them when we build in the Northwest, we've got a lot of seismic requirements. All of this thick, solid wood is basically a conduit for heat to escape to the outside. Right. So that's reason one.
Right. So then what about water, keeping the moisture out of the building, which I've talked a lot about? Does the pink contribute to that?
It does. It does. We sort of think about moisture management on 2 levels. I mean, there's flat out rain. That's the obvious one. And the other one that we're learning a lot more about is vapor, basically. And that's where a lot of our mold problems are coming from. Traditionally, when we build in the Northwest, when we create something like this, we actually cover this batt and this wood with a polyethylene sheet.
So
it's
plastic
a plastic sheet, which is almost impenetrable to vapor. The upside is that keeps water from migrating inside the warm space towards the outside. It keeps moisture from bleeding into the wall assembly.
Right.
The downside is that over time our exteriors have become much tighter. And so what's happening is that some water is still getting through. It can't bleed, it can't escape to the outside, and because of that polyethylene, it can't escape to the inside.
Right.
Well, one way to avoid a need for that polyethylene vapor barrier is to move the condensation plane from the inside of the building further out. And that's there's a bit of science and a bit of math to that. But basically, 1 inch of foam is more than enough in our region to raise the dew point on this wall assembly.
Right.
So we're no longer worried about condensation occurring to such a great extent inside the wall assembly. This is now IRC, the International Residential Code, accepts this. The DOE, the Department of Energy, and their Building America program recommends this as an ideal construction method for a marine climate. And we actually expect Oregon Code to formally recognize this sometime this year.
Right. So if you keep water out of the inside of the wall and you prevent mold, which is all what we're looking to do with this strategy, then what are the other ways water can get in the wall?
Well, rain.
Right.
Plain old rain.
Yeah, we have a little bit of that.
In Portland, we get a lot of that here. So we're not actually trying to create an absolute waterproof barrier on the outside. As we just went over, we'd really like a wall assembly that breathes a little bit, that allows vapor to exhale from the structure. So this building actually has 3 water-resistant barriers, which is quite a bit. We've got our exterior fiber cement, hardy plank in this case. Behind that, we've got 1 inch of XPS foam. XPS is actually permeable. Moisture can travel through this, but water will bead on it. Behind that, we've got the traditional Tyvek. So basically, we've gone for redundancy. We've got 3 barriers here, and pretty confident that when you add all of those up, we've got a very robust system.
Right. Now, I see you've got some metal up here and a piece of foam missing. What's the thought process here?
Well, we'll put this together in a minute or two, but this is a piece of metal Z-flashing. And traditionally, this would sit on top of your exterior trim, and it would just lap behind your exterior siding.
Right.
So basically, it's a way of making sure that any moisture traveling down the face of the veneer, the exterior siding, doesn't flow back into the structure.
Right.
But we've got 3 barriers here, and we want to take advantage of all of them. I don't want moisture traveling through the first or second barrier, hitting the Tyvek in the back, and then ending up inside the wall, inside this window opening.
Right.
So we decided that it would be worthwhile, and it wasn't super easy, to have some Z-flashing manufactured and actually cut a channel in our XPS. This Z-flashing sits all the way behind the Tyvek. It's not a real easy install, but it's not impossible. It definitely slows a crew down, but once they figure it out, it goes pretty quickly. And so any water that hits any of the 3 barriers is going to hit the top of this, and it's going to be diverted outside of the structure.
Right.
Now, the design of this building actually has a belly band at the lower level, it has a belly band at the mid level, and a band at the upper level. We actually applied flashing in this manner at the lower 2 bands. So at floor level, on the ground floor, we've got a kick out, and then mid-level around the entire building, we've got another kick out. Then we've also got this on top of every single window, door, vent block, light block. Any opportunity where water could go into the structure, we've actually taken advantage of that and created an opportunity to divert water out of the structure. So, the theory is, and I think this is going to work very, very well, all we're doing is pushing moisture out of this building.
Right, great. Well, why don't we take a moment and we'll go through a little bit more of the detail of how this gets installed, and we'll show folks exactly how this works in detail. So welcome back. We're here with Rory at the window demonstration panel here, and he's going to walk us through how we put this system together, especially with regards to the header flashing.
We're not going into detail about how to install a window today, for starters. One detail I would like to add is that we did use rigid sill pans on all the windows and doors on the structure. I think that's worth it. However, to our custom flashing and our header details, we cut out a 2-inch, 2¼ inch slot that more or less aligns with the top of our header trim. This makes it possible to get this angled Z-flashing in on top. You really couldn't do it without it. A couple of things about installing this Z-flashing. First of all, it's angled in our case. So this cut line actually needs to be about a 1/4 inch above the trim in order for this thing to fit in there. Second, when you make this cut, the top cut goes all the way back to the plywood. I do need to cut through the Tyvek because I need a slot that I can insert my flashing through. When I make my side cuts, and preferably when I make my bottom cut, I'm not cutting the Tyvek. I want to maintain the integrity of the drain plane on the corners and the bottom, ideally. The most challenging and demanding part of this install, the bit that takes the most attention to detail, is to make sure that when I insert this flashing, I'm pushing it behind and under the Tyvek. I'm not simply pushing the Tyvek up the wall assembly. I want to make sure that the drain plane laps from the face of the Tyvek to the face of the Z-flashing and then kicks my water out. Instead of trying to reuse the piece that came out, because it doesn't come out terribly clean, we actually push sticks through a table saw. That goes in pretty easily. We pre-cut our header trim there. Obviously we're not completely trimming out our window. Is that more or less centered on your end?
I can come this way a little bit.
Okay. Give you that. Providing you've trimmed out the rest of your window, done all your flashing right, this is it.
All right, great. So Sean Bussey, Rory Reed here with Portland Built. We'll see you next time.